The origins of the high-frequency active auroral research program can be traced not to a military facility in Alaska, as many commonly believe, but rather to a more obscure and unexpected source, a Texas oil company operating in the mid to late 20th century. The intellectual and technical foundation for what would eventually evolve into the massive ionospheric heater in Gakona, Alaska, began with a single inventive mind, a physicist by the name of Bernard Eastlund. His work, developed while under contract to a subsidiary of a major oil enterprise, eventually produced a patent that has become infamous in both scientific and conspiracy circles alike. Bernard Eastlund's professional background straddled the worlds of corporate science, advanced physics, and defense-adjacent technologies. While collaborating with a subsidiary of Atlantic Richfield Company, a major petroleum firm based in Texas, Eastlund was tasked with exploring non-traditional uses of the company's vast natural gas reserves discovered in Alaska's Prudhoe Bay. The idea was not merely to extract and transport this energy, but to find innovative ways to utilize it in situ. This line of thinking gave rise to the concept of using gas-generated electricity to power a massive electromagnetic transmission facility capable of interacting with the ionosphere. The patent application Eastlund filed in the mid-1980s was granted in the summer of 1987. It bore the title, Method and Apparatus for Altering a Region in the Earth's Atmosphere, Ionosphere, and/or Magnetosphere. It proposed a system of ground-based radio transmitters that could send high-powered radio waves into the upper layers of the atmosphere. These waves would cause localized heating, altering the behavior of charged particles in the ionosphere and magnetosphere. While atmospheric heating had been experimented with before on smaller scales, Eastlund's concept was remarkable for its scale, ambition, and multi-domain implications. According to the patent, the electromagnetic waves generated by the proposed apparatus could be used to manipulate the ionosphere in various strategic ways. For example, the energy could be focused to create a lens or mirror effect in the atmosphere, potentially allowing for the reflection of communication signals over the horizon. More provocatively, the patent suggested that such a system could interfere with or even disable incoming ballistic missiles by disrupting their guidance systems. The apparatus could, in theory, simulate the effects of a nuclear explosion in the sky, producing high-altitude electromagnetic pulses without the use of fissile materials. What made the patent even more provocative was its reference to potential weather modification. By heating specific regions of the upper atmosphere, it might be possible to affect wind patterns, jet streams, or even precipitation cycles in a targeted area. Although this idea was presented in theoretical terms, the suggestion that one could manipulate weather systems from the ground fed directly into the more dramatic speculations that would later surround the high-frequency active auroral research program. The use of electromagnetic waves to influence the ionosphere is not a purely speculative endeavor. The basic science behind this has been confirmed through smaller facilities like those located in Troms, Norway, and near Fairbanks, Alaska before the construction of the larger facility in Gakona. These installations showed that high-powered radio waves could indeed induce ionospheric heating, stimulate the production of low-frequency waves, and generate artificial auroras. Eastlund's patent took these foundational concepts and imagined their application on a grander, more transformative scale. The relationship between the original patent and the later government-funded research project is not purely hypothetical. The original patent was assigned to a company called APTI, a subsidiary of the Atlantic Richfield Company, which was later contracted by the United States Air Force and Navy to develop what would become the high-frequency active auroral research program facility. When APTI was sold to a larger defense contractor, and later acquired by yet another major defense entity, the patent rights and associated technology went along with it. Bernard Eastlund himself would later claim that the design of the facility was based on his patent, even if the full scope of his more radical ideas were never fully implemented. The site constructed in Gakona, Alaska consisted of a phased array of high-frequency antennas spread over a large field. These antennas were capable of generating focused beams of radio frequency energy directed upward into the ionosphere. The purpose of these transmissions was publicly stated as scientific research, to study the natural dynamics of the ionosphere and to develop advanced technologies for radio communications and surveillance. However, the public availability of the Eastlund patent, combined with the facility's remote location and military oversight, led to a range of suspicions and theories. Among the more controversial ideas drawn from the original patent was the claim that the facility could influence weather patterns or be used as a weapon. Although the scientific consensus largely dismisses the idea that such an installation could have a practical effect on global weather systems, the original patent's language is sufficiently broad and suggestive to fuel ongoing speculation. The patent even alludes to the possibility of creating artificial plasma layers, redirecting particles trapped in the Van Allen belts, or disabling satellites and aircraft electronics, concepts that sit on the edge of conventional physics but were not excluded from the realm of possibility by the patent itself. The timing of the patent is also worth noting. It was filed during the height of the Cold War, when technological supremacy was viewed not merely as advantageous but essential. The United States and the Soviet Union were both engaged in extensive research into exotic defense systems, including particle beams, weather control, and space-based surveillance platforms. In this context, Eastlund's invention would have appeared as an imaginative and potentially valuable tool in the ever-escalating arsenal of high-tech defense capabilities. What sets this particular patent apart from typical defense-related inventions is its unusual fusion of energy infrastructure with advanced atmospheric physics. The idea of using natural gas resources to power a geophysical weapon was, at the time, unconventional and illustrative of the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that sometimes characterizes research sponsored by major corporations with ties to government contracts. Although the eventual facility constructed in Alaska did not operate with natural gas power as Eastlund had proposed, the vision embedded in the original patent remained influential in shaping the research and technical framework for the larger project. Bernard Eastlund would go on to file other patents that expanded on the principles outlined in his original document. These included more refined systems for beam steering, artificial ionospheric mirrors, and even concepts involving the manipulation of atmospheric conditions to support missile defense. While his name is not widely known outside of certain technical or speculative communities, his contributions to atmospheric physics and defense theory are significant. His original patent remains one of the clearest bridges between corporate energy interests, scientific exploration, and military technology development. The very language of the patent suggests that its author was well aware of the controversial implications of his ideas. It speaks not only of enhancing communications but also of disrupting them, not only of atmospheric study, but also of atmospheric control. Whether these capabilities were ever fully realized remains uncertain, but the potential envisioned in the patent was vast, ambitious, and in many respects ahead of its time. As the high-frequency active Auroral research program became operational, a number of public outreach efforts were made to frame its purpose in purely scientific terms. Tours were offered, academic collaborations were initiated, and data was published. Nevertheless, the shadow cast by Eastlund's original invention remained. The notion that a system had been proposed decades earlier which could potentially affect everything from radio communications to climate patterns ensured that the project would never be entirely free of scrutiny. Even today, with the original military-run version of the project having been transferred to a civilian research institution, the theories and fears associated with Eastlund's patent endure. Much of this persistence is due to the sheer breadth of his claims and the openness with which they were presented. Unlike classified documents or covert programs, this patent was a public document available to anyone willing to read it. That openness has made it a cornerstone in the architecture of both legitimate inquiry and less grounded speculation. In a broader sense, the legacy of the patent reflects a recurring theme in modern technological history: the convergence of military ambition, corporate resources, and scientific vision. The invention was not the product of an isolated genius working in obscurity, but of a deliberate effort by a large energy company to repurpose its assets in a way that might influence the skies themselves. Whether that influence was intended to be benign or strategic remains an open question, but the implications of the work are clear. The apparatus described in Eastlund's patent envisioned a world where the upper atmosphere could be shaped like clay on a potter's wheel, subject to the invisible hands of electromagnetic force. It imagined a future in which human beings, standing on the ground, could reach up into the charged layers of the sky and alter their behavior for communication, defense, or possibly environmental purposes. That vision, while never fully realized in the precise terms described in the patent, nonetheless set the stage for one of the most enigmatic and debated scientific installations of the modern era.